Alright, let's get into this. Okay, this one's kind of a bizarre thing going around. There's a lot of bizarre things going around. Well, there's always bizarre things going around. First off, I just want to address something really quick about gunboats in the Mediterranean, something I've been talking about there with the refugees. It looks like near the Turkish side of, now nobody knows who really did it, but there was four guys, masked men on a Greek gunboat or whatever, went and started open firing on some refugees and was sinking their raft, and then they started beating them with sticks. I don't think anybody got killed this time around, but there is a video out there floating around, and there it's kind of unnerving, but it kind of goes to what I'm saying. You're having desperate people doing desperate things to desperate people, so it's kind of, kind of streams that way, but that's the way it's working out. Now, another weird anomaly. This one is down the rabbit hole, conspiracy theory. Go check out, just something to keep an eye on. But I just found it odd with the coincidental. Morgan Freeman, you know, the actor. Well, his daughter was stabbed to death in New York City. Now, incidentally, he's just come out in a video saying, talking about the deal with Iran, saying, sign the deal sort of thing. And I think he's more of a Democrat or whatever, but I don't know what his politics really are. Very, very sad for, sorry to hear about his loss or whatever. But it's weird. Well, I mean, here's the story. His daughter got stabbed by an ex or something like that during an exorcism. So take that with that's what's floating around on the mainstream media. So, but at the same time, we see him in a video with a bunch of other people saying, don't let the sign the Iran deal. Don't let it go because it's we can get into a war if we don't. Now, this all coincides with a lot of things that are going on in the world, and you're seeing not so much. How's the best way to put it? You're seeing despotism to the max. John Kerry is kind of, he's kind of notorious for saying letting the cat out of the bag early. He did this a couple of years ago with Assad, saying, well, if Assad were to give up his weapons, his chemical weapons, we'd have no reason to invade. And lo and behold, Putin jumps on it right away, being the sharp tack that he is. Say, yeah, take the deal, And the next day, Assad's like, okay, well, there you go, we've complied to you. So it's like it throws the whole war plan back by about 4 years, right? So, or 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's been. So that obviously was. I'm sure he slapped himself in the forehead for that one, or maybe, just maybe, and I'm not a John Kerry fan at all. Maybe he's a good guy. Who knows? Maybe he's doing purpose sabotage to actually keep us. I mean, keep in mind, love him or hate him, the man was a war prisoner at one point, and because of that, I'm pretty sure he probably truly understands what hell those guys are going to go through. So if he goes along with it, then he's just complete evil. But if he's actually blurbing and doing like self-sabotage, maybe that's a good idea. Either way, it doesn't really matter. He's let the cat out of the bag. So good guy, bad guy. I don't think he's a good guy personally, but you guys argue amongst yourselves. I don't trust any of them. But he has said that if the Iranian deal is not signed, it could mean the end of the petrodollar. But he's also said it makes nuclear war imminent, or not nuclear war, but war with Iran inevitable. So maybe not use nukes, but and it also, he referred to Ukraine. He's saying, look, if that falls apart, again, it's that big ass domino effect thing that's going to happen. He's saying European partners will lose confidence in the United States, and if they don't sign the deal, European countries, like I've said right from day one, at some point, Europe is going to ask the question, do we go to war for the Ukrainians? The answer, I think, is going to be no. European people, maybe in Eastern Europe, I mean, those people are screwed now anyways, because, that bear's pretty hungry right now, and there's really nobody going to be protecting them. They're on their own. So Lithuania, I think they really screwed themselves by making the bold statements of arming the Ukraine, being the first to arm Ukraine. So Russia's going to get payback on that. I'm not saying Russia's good or Russia's bad. I'm saying the geopolitics are what they are. It's the crazy world we live in. And when Russia knows that there's absolutely no chance that anybody's coming to the rescue of the Ukraine, that's it for the Ukraine. There will be no more Ukraine. It's to me, if you can't see it coming, again, people are going to ask themselves, do they really, really want to die for Eastern Europeans? So Western Europe versus the Eastern Bloc countries, basically, which the regime change in the Ukraine has led to the biggest destabilization of the Ukraine, and it's falling apart now. And the rest of Europe is saying, hey, look, the U.S. is telling us to sanction and cut business, which is hurting Europe as well with Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. is still doing trade and stuff like that with Russia, on most fronts. So, everybody else has to comply to the sanctions, but they don't. So Europeans we want to walk away from this. So if the Iranian deal doesn't get signed, it's going to have that effect where people lose confidence in the United States, and they're just going to start dropping the sanctions on Russia, which actually will be a good thing for Europe because it's business. You know what I mean? Where it's going to be bad is for the Ukraine. It's going to be bad for Lithuania. It's going to be bad for Poland. It's going to be bad for. People drew their lines, and I understand why. I get the bad blood between them. I don't think you're going to see a Georgian-style invasion anytime soon. But like I said, the Ukraine, they could bleed this out right away. This is why I think there's been such a mass movement of military and fighting, something like a couple of hundred tanks, 5,000 personnel or whatever, moving to the eastern side of the Ukraine to try to. Again, Poroshenko does not have control of the right sector, or let alone the Ukrainian military. He's just there. So they've lost control of the Ukraine. So they know that if before they get thrown under the bus, they're going to have to. I don't know what they're going to do, but it's going to be bad for the Ukraine. I said it right from day one after the Maidan massacre. This was Putin's line in the sand. They're going to take it back. They're going to take it back. But more importantly, it's going to be handed over to the Russians. How? Europe's going to drop sanctions. They're going to say, look, we've done what we can. The eastern side, the western side, both are breaking the ceasefire. We're done. We're washing our hands of this. Meanwhile, the real culprits are going to be the U.S. central bankers, the EU, board, the IMF, all those people, the State Department, etc., Victoria Nuland and George Soros, all these people, they destroyed the Ukraine. Yeah, the Russians were doing a bad job there purposely before, but right now the civil war is about to go completely, in my opinion, it's going to go long bad. It's going to go through the entire country. And I think that's how Russia's going to take it. Right now, there's also a rumor that there's 50,000 Russian troops, whether you believe it or not, mixed in with the DPR and LPR. So if there's 50,000 Russian troops in there, I don't think the Ukrainian military is going to have much of a chance. Really, they're not going to, because it's just not only the numbers game, it's the training, it's the the resupply. Here's something that nobody ever questions: is how the Ukraine, which is so broke, how the heck does it keep getting? How come the tanks never run out of ammo or fuel? You know what I mean? That's a thing. Sorry, a little perch. So everybody's kind of catching on to that stuff. So if the Iranian deal falls through, which is, it doesn't really matter if it gets signed or not. The goal is to go to war for Israel with Iran. Israel wants the United States to send their farm boys to go kill Iranians. It's going to happen. It's a done deal. The Iranians have attacked, or the Israelis, Mossad has killed off scientists, Iranian scientists, and attacked, done terrorist attacks in Iran several times. They've done airstrikes in Iran. All these preemptive strikes and stuff like that. They're the ones always doing the aggression. Now you hear, well, Hezbollah is again, I'm not saying the Iranians aren't backing Hezbollah. I get that. There's no good guys there. But at the end of the day, when we look from the government point of view, it's the Zionist government that's really in control in Israel, and they control the puppets. Over out of the 500 Congress people, you're looking at about 300 of them that are Zionists. Whether they're Christian, Judeo-Christian, or Jew, they're Zionist neocons. Their goal is always death and destruction, go to war, get people killed. The reason why the Iran deal is it doesn't matter which way you go. Obama's out there saying, sign the damn thing, just sign it. It's what Israel wants. If they sign it, okay, and they pass it through, well, the Iranians already signed it, but if the deal passes through, okay, it's a green light to go to war. Because of the stipulation in there. A lot of people think, oh no, you're just giving Iran all these concessions. It's to blind them from this one part in the agreement. And again, I can't imagine how the Iranians didn't pick up on this. It's basically, it gives the United States the right, on behalf of Israel or whoever, or even Israel, the right to preemptively strike Iran if they're in violation of the weapons treaty, right? So here's the deal. When has the United States, government, ever come out and shown you proof for anything? 9/11, they've never shown you proof who did it. You know what I mean? They just said these guys did it. And they MH17. oh, these guys did it. 15 minutes after the airplane gets shot down, the Russians did it. We don't even know who did it. We still don't know who did it. You know what I mean? It's that type of thing. It is now legal U.S. law to propagandize the American people. They changed this, I think, in 2012. It's legal. All the news you watch is propaganda, but that's how you get your information. Because when they tell you you're going to war, they're telling you you're going to war. They're not lying about that part. You can always guarantee if it's death and destruction, they're going to head that way. It's just what spin doctor are they going to put on it, and it's always going to be pretty much for the bankers and for Israel. The usual players. Now the thing is what they're going to do when, if or when this deal gets signed. Okay, you go to war, they get to keep safe face. Okay, and that can keep the sanctions on Russia. They could they're never going to salvage the Ukraine. Ukraine's done. It's dead. There is no more Ukraine. Forget about Ukraine. The people that are there, unfortunately. I think what they need to do is go into their, what you call it, their parliament, put them out in the street, and at least get some gratitude out of it. They're going to be hanging from the street lamps soon anyway. The right sector has already said, if we don't get what we want, we're going to kill you guys. We're going to take you in a basement somewhere, we're going to beat you with hammers, that type of thing. So that's coming anyway. The thing is right after that, they're going to get destroyed by Russia. How they're going to again, if they can get the people to fight a proxy war, they'll do that. Why not, right? It's the cheapest way to do it. And then Russia is going to get back everything. So, but either way, Eastern Europe, the war was designed to be in Eastern Europe. But the thing is if Europe doesn't go along with it, then that's it. Everybody backs out. Ukraine's on its own. And I told you, Ukraine will be thrown under the bus at some point. The rest of Europe is going to say, do we want to go to war for them or not? And if this is an out for them, say, well, we can't trust the U.S. because they didn't sign the Iran deal, therefore we can get out. No problem. They might just do that. That will undermine the U.S. dollar as well. And also, too, the other thing is that deal, that clause, that's the thing that Israel wants. Israel's just putting up a front right now to make it sound like it's getting a bad deal. What's that saying? The Zionists lash out in pain as they strike you. It's unfair. No, it's exactly what they wanted. That's why they're dropping all these sanctions, and that's why they're giving them all the good stuff. Because it's not going to last long. You're going to be in a war within a month or two. You see the point? The point is to go to war with Iran. Period. Now, if they don't sign it, you just go to war quicker. Donald Trump was out there saying, this deal's a bad deal. It's going to lead to a nuclear war. That type of thing. So I think he's right. And the thing is I don't think Iran will lead to a nuclear war, but what it steps to is that China gets involved, because even the Chinese government has been out there saying the whole destabilization of Iran is about a war against us. The Chinese aren't stupid. Now we're going to switch over to China right now. The God Rod. I don't know if you've heard this term yet. A couple of days ago, okay, from making this video, there was a huge, massive, almost 5 kiloton sized explosion in China. They're blaming it on some gases in the sewers and some, I forget what the chemical they were saying it was, and it's blown up a huge area. And the Chinese have got a media blackout. Now take this one with a grain of salt, because what the rumor is that the U.S. struck them with some sort of what they call a kinetic energy weapon from outer space. It's not impossible they have them. The Russians have been reporting on satellites that, space junk that can maneuver in space. Well, it's these kinetic energy weapons. We've seen some stuff declassified in Japan, where these space vehicles basically got thrusters all around them. It looks like watching a dragonfly fly or hover. It's like watching it's like watching a hummingbird just sitting there hover. This thing it can fly any direction in outer space. And we know how kinetic energy weapons work and stuff like that. The fuel air bomb was kind of the grandfather of kind of this kind of kinetic energy, where you just take a massive amount of energy and you can sink ships with it. You can do anything. You can destroy whatever. Now, this comes at a time when the Chinese have done once, but twice, but 3 times within 20 years. Okay, they don't devalue their currency. Now, the Chinese have always manipulated their currency, but they've done something else, something that a lot of people don't realize. They have started their devaluation of their currency is coming through 2 things. Number one, they're taking a downgrade, okay, so that they can, basically make their currency more competitive. So people will flock to it. It's to boost their economy, to kickstart their economy, because their economies, Harry Dent was right, their economy's tanking. Okay, and so they're doing all kinds of things to stimulate their economy. This is one, but the second thing that they're doing is they're sending back U.S. treasuries. Now, what the word on the grapevine is, and this comes from one of my viewers sent me the link, that what the Chinese media is censoring anything that's talking about kinetic energy weapons and stuff like that. That this may have been an attack by the United States. They're not talking about that, but they have talked about in a recent a week or two that they said, okay, look, we're already at a state of war with the Americans because they're attacking our economy. The Chinese government has said this, like about 2 weeks ago from the making of this video. That's not, it's not conspiracy to the point of speculation here. This is what their government narrative is. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. That's what they're spinning to the people. Maybe it's all BS and they're just telling that so their people don't rise up against them. They can blame the United States. But it doesn't matter. This can bounce us into an accidental war. So who's telling the truth? It doesn't really matter. Just listen to what they're saying. So we see the Chinese devalue their currency. The next day, big things blow up in China. Was that a warning shot from this so-called God Rod space weapon? Who knows? We don't know. But it's very, very, very scary. And they will be implementing martial law in that area where the explosion was. I forget how many people are dead so far, quite a few, and that type of thing. But it's kind of a strange thing because they're censoring it so much, and they're going after, well, China's not. It's not strange that China is censoring everything, but we're, over here, it's right away they're saying, well, it was an industrial accident, right away. But the coincidence, again, these coincidences, people make statements, bizarre things happen. People do something with their currency, bizarre things happening. Now it looks like over there in Greece that they might be taking on the Turkish currency. Again, they're screwed. It doesn't matter which way they go. They can't, the bailout is not going to work for them. They can't stay in debt for the next 75 years. It's just not going to, the Greek people will be dead by then, right? So we also see all the destabilization in Turkey. So, maybe that has something to do with it. Again, Turkey comes out 3 or 4 weeks ago saying that, or maybe about a month or so, saying that, hey, yeah, we might sell our oil outside the US dollar in a few years. Then all of a sudden they get all these secular violence coming in. And then, of course, there's a lot of other tribal stuff going on there, too. And remember, that pipeline that's going to go through Russia, through Turkey, through Syria, through Iran, probably make a deal with Pakistan at some point to get into through China. That pipeline will allow the Middle East to prosper. It will support China. It will support Russia. They will have a whole system there. I'm not saying it won't be corrupt. Of course, it'll be corrupt when we know. Again, there's no good guys, right? We know that the Israel will never let that happen. They don't want to do that. The Russians, on the other hand, they're realizing that there's big mobilizations, particularly in Turkey, to get ready to do a push against Assad. Again, never mind ISIS, let's go get Assad. That's the narrative. That's what all the governments are doing. And the Russians are going to have to act quick. So how they're going to back, I think they would, like I've said before, what they would probably do is come in through the back of Iran, so to speak, or into Iran, and back Assad from behind, like the Iranians are already doing. Only difference is they're going to put in more powerful systems, such as the S-300 missile system Iran has already gotten. Now Saudi Arabia is now switching its weapons to the Russian side, maybe to play better with the Russians, who knows. But I don't know what's going to happen to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has no friends, right? Government speaking. They're going to get thrown under the bus at some point. I don't think too many farm boys are going to want to go fight for the Saudis. I just don't see it. So the other thing is to get into a war in that region, okay, or anywhere right now is we're seeing job layoff after job layoff. We keep hearing this remarkable economic recovery in the United States, but I haven't heard one thing on the mainstream media in the past 3 months that are talking about massive job increasing. All I've been hearing about is layoffs. Sorry, a little perched. So when I just keep hearing about layoffs, where's all this growth? And the U.S. currency, again, the stock market is not, it's propped up. It's completely fake. There's nothing realistic about it at all. And okay, what about U.S. raising rates in September? Well, don't, that's going to happen again. Didn't I tell you guys? And it's not just me saying it. There's a lot of people saying, look, people know that if there's any chance that they will raise rates, it'll crash the economy. It's that volatile. So something could happen in September. Something could happen in October. I say no economic collapse till war comes. But the question is, which war and where? The United States' foreign policy is designed to get as much hatred for the United States as possible to get an attack to come in. Whether the goal is to get Russia or China or Iran or somebody to basically attack first. That it's all provocation. The idea is to look like the good guys, right? Because if not, the people are going to rise up against you. I think people are starting to catch on that all these Israel wars, or wars for Israel and wars for the bankers, but people don't know what to do about it. So it's not that people aren't awake; they just don't know what to do about it. But I think at some point, when it comes down to it, okay, the Iranians are pretty well armed. They're not as well armed as Russia or China, but they're well armed enough. It won't be a long war in Iran, in the sense of to take out their stuff. Most of it is older U.S. equipment and Soviet equipment. They got F-4 Phantoms. They've got, what you call it? F-14s. Not too many of them fly because they don't have parts. They've got a variant of F-5 with a twin tail that kind of look like a CF-18 or FA-18. They've got their own domestic tanks. They've got U.S.-made Abrams tanks. That type of stuff. So the Iranian military has older U.S. equipment back when they liked Iran. So again, we arm the people we fight in the future. That's the whole U.S. military-industrial complex. That's what I'm talking about. Like, we arm the people we fight in the future. The Free Syrian Army. Yeah, these were the good guys we armed. Now we're fighting. Now we've got to blow them up because now they're called ISIS. You know what I mean? And they're still trying to sell you on the idea of moderate rebels. But yeah, I digress. So with that said, if they can use Iran to blame Iran for the collapse of the U.S. economy, they will do that. If they can use the Russians, they will do that. And I think there's a bit of a kind of economic hot potato being flung around between the Russians, the Chinese, and the Iranians. Now, as soon as the deal is signed, the Iranians are going to dump massive amounts of oil onto the market, their oil. And that oil is going to undermine our oil. Canada, the United States, Saudi Arabia. Oil is going to go down to like $5 a barrel. I almost guarantee it's going to probably do that at some point. And yet, what's going to happen is it's going to undermine industry so much in North America. It's going to the oil sector get ready for more. So when this deal gets signed, it's going to be an economic killer in that sector. It's going to kill the fracking industry. It's going to kill, because oil's going to be so cheap on their end, but it's going to be hyper expensive on our end. And it's done by design, don't get me wrong. So when the economy starts tanking, and say, well, it's because the Iranians did this, because the Iranians did that. The Iranians don't really care from that point of view. They don't care what happens to us. And really, can you blame them? I'm not a big fan of Iran at all. But again, if they leave us alone, I'm willing to leave them alone. The thing is that the goal is that when people get pissed off enough at Iran, I mean, never mind that people in Alberta should be pissed off at Saudi Arabia, but because we're in OPEC, and again, the Saudis are throwing oil on the market that's not needed, but yet the prices at the pumps are going up, but yet it's undercutting our labor here. Now, mind you, don't worry. Those jobs, those expensive, those well-paying jobs, they're going to go into probably temporary foreign workers will probably get those. Usually that's the way it works. You lay off all people in the industry, then you bring other people back at half the cost. That's the way it's been working with the immigration systems. So at the end of the day, what's going to happen is whatever excuse they're going to use to go to war. If they don't sign the deal, well, Israel's going to do a preemptive strike, and then they're going to, say, oh well, we blew up their facilities, and they attacked us in retaliation. So you got to come and defend us. So that's what Israel wants you to do, and that's what's going to happen. So if you're in the U.S. military, you're going to die over there in the desert. You're not going to have a choice on this. And it's going to get worse because here's how they're going to get this support. What they're going to do, and this is just my idea of what they're going to do, is if we just take U.S. soldiers and Canadian soldiers and British soldiers and whoever and throw them in Iran, people are going to freak out. They're going to say another war for oil and whatever. No, they got to get something better than that. So they're going to use the precursor of economic terrorism or whatever as probably the precursor, as saying, well, they're making all this money now. We've got proof that they're making a weapon. So now we can go in and strike them. But the U.S. public is going to be outraged on this. So the first thing they're going to do is send in an aircraft carrier, probably something big like, the Eisenhower, whichever, and they're going to send that into the Strait of Hormuz. Now, that is the worst place to put an aircraft carrier. Now, unfortunately for the poor 8,000 bastards that are going to be on this aircraft carrier, what they don't know is, and they're going to be sold the idea, well, the U.S. military has a navy is much more powerful than the Iranian navy. It's not the Iranian navy you have to worry about. It's the kill box. They're going to take out this aircraft carrier. They're going to fire a couple of missiles, okay? And don't get me wrong, aircraft carriers are superly well defended. They've got, sky guards, they've got missiles, they've got everything that, to do it. And the Iranian missiles aren't really that good. They're good enough, but they're not really that good. But that's not the problem. The problem is the 165 artillery shells coming out at once. At the same time, 300 anti-shipping missiles are coming out from multiple directions. It's going to be a slaughterfest. They'll sink the aircraft carrier. 8,000 sailors die. The United States, we got to go kill those freaking Iranians. You see what I mean? It's setting up kind of like another Pearl Harbor. To get, look, they allowed the Japanese to come in and bomb the crap out of Pearl Harbor. They knew about them a day before almost. They knew about the Japanese submarine. Things got lost in communication. How convenient. It got them into the war, didn't it? So every time we see the Gulf of Tonkin incident, never happened, and it got them into Vietnam. The sinking of the Lusitania, again, it gets them into it. So you think they're going to stop false flags now? No. But the perfect thing about this is people will be mourning the loss of these U.S. Navy's, Navy personnel on this aircraft carrier. They get rid of the aircraft carrier because, again, they're going to have to decommission these things at some point. It's a lot cheaper to just sink them, and if you have to kill a few sailors, well, it's economic. War is a racket. The people are nothing. They don't respect the sailors. They don't respect the airmen. They don't. If you believe that the U.S. government cares about its army, just look at your veterans. That'll tell you how much they care about the army. And you know what? It's the same here in Canada. They don't care about. They always have money to send you to war. They always have money for you to fight with the best equipment, but they never have money for your treatment when you come back broken. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, that's the goal. But we can clearly listen to Netanyahu. We know exactly what his plan is. You can't wait to get into a war with Iran. Iran's going to have a nuke in the next 5 minutes, that type of thing. But it's not really about Iran. After Iran comes China. That's going to be bad. They might do something in Pakistan too, just to kind of pave the way a bit better. But Pakistan is kind of they're like Turkey, where they're a U.S. ally, but they're not. They're a U.S. ally, but yet the U.S. bombs them. It's really strange. But Pakistan is what it is. But that's the final stage. Once you control that, you control all the oil in the Middle East. You control all the minerals. You control all the pipelines. You can cut off China. You can cut off Russia, and for the oil pipelines. And then if Turkey doesn't go along, well, they'll just let sectarian violence, flood into Turkey, and that'll be the end of Turkey. So this is the game that's being played, and you can see it. You can clearly see it. And remember, Saudi Arabia, its best oil fields are in the Shia side of Saudi Arabia, which laps to the Shia tribal side of Iran, right? So, it's the Shia are looking at it as their territory. They're not looking at I live in Iran, so I got to stay in Iran, or I live in Saudi Arabia, I got to stay in Saudi Arabia. No, this is our territory. Again, tribal lines don't line up with country lines, and it was the fall of the Ottoman Empire that did this. So you go back to there, and you can see how that destabilization has led to the map we have now and why things are going the way they are. So that said, did the United States strike China again? Maybe yes, maybe no. What the rumor is that and the censorship now, the Chinese might be also censoring it because say, hey, we can't prove this. We're not saying this, and we don't want this to get out there. We don't want to escalate things, or whatever. And again, I can't prove it either. But you wouldn't be able to prove, something like that anyway. You wouldn't see this thing coming in. It would be coming in pretty fast, and what is it? Not Lindsey Graham. What's the guy's name? Sorry, Paul Craig Roberts. He was talking about the space weapons, and same with Joe Skousen. He was also talking about the weapons that the United States has They're all space. They're all Star Wars program. This goes beyond what Ronald Reagan was talking about with the Star Wars program. His vision was basically just to shoot down intercontinental missiles. This is a little bit more in depth than that. So we don't know what these things are. We don't know how they work exactly. But if they can put a 5 kiloton beam somewhere, and apparently Joe Scalzo was saying like the Russians are terrified of these things. The Chinese are terrified of these things. Because they don't know how to beat them. So I'm thinking that all of the decoy through Israel, where the United States gives Israel all kinds of military equipment, and they turn around and sell it to the Chinese, which they've been known to do. Again, Israel is not the friend of the United States. They've done a lot of bad things to the United States. But yet, again, you get the biblical people out there. They think that the Israeli government is actually the Israelites, and whatever. I get the biblical thing out of it, but the Israeli government. Look, here's the proof that the Israeli government is not the true Israelites. Ten Commandments: Thy shall not kill. That's your key. God wouldn't condone that. If you're a religious person, God would not condone those violence. So therefore, you don't follow those guys. They're not the true Israelites. Now, I'm not saying the true Israelites are not in Israel, but I'm saying the Zionist government, the Zionists. If you don't know about Zionism, it's a supremacy group. If you don't like neo-Nazis, if you don't like the KKK, if you don't like jihadists, you're definitely not going to like Zionists. And Zionists are the best funded. But they're a supremacy movement. That's what it is. The idea of going to war in Iran, again, is a stepping stone to Russia and China. After Iran, it's really the last two men, the last players are going to be Russia and China. And that's the scary part. So we know that in 2009, there was the guy kind of switched sides, and he did the right thing, and then he kind of backtracked and stuff like that. And he comes out and he says, look, he says the night before they invaded Iraq, for the occupation, he gets a call and they said it's bad, and he says we're going to invade Iraq, and he asks why, and the guy goes, I don't know. Of course the whole audience laughs, like, okay, it's like, you serious, And then he gets called back 5 minutes later, and he says it's even worse than that. He says they're going to take out 5 countries in 5 years. Now, mind you, they're a little bit behind schedule, but those 5 countries are pretty much all followed: Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the next one, Iran. So Oman, Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, those places, again, Egypt, they're kind of compliant. But Egypt can go the opposite way too, so can Turkey. We're seeing that the Egyptians are holding more drills with the Russians. Now, they've always kind of played both sides on that, buying military equipment. But again, we see, the Egyptians are now basically given those F-16s, brand new F-16s, and of course they're doing drills with the Russians. What, you're telling me the Egyptians aren't going to let the Russians look at those aircraft? So either the Americans got these secret weapons up there, which makes sense, and I believe they would have these weapons. And they're like, okay, it doesn't matter if they know what the technology is. It doesn't matter if all the computer chips in our fighters are made in China and probably have, some sort of decode for the Chinese to hack it. It doesn't matter, because they got these other weapons that the Chinese and the Russians cannot counter. Who knows if these weapons are capable of what happened in China? That's a very scary kind of world that we could be living in, because we don't know what the full extent of these weapons are, and we don't really know who's in control of them. That's the scarier part. Now, incidentally, Germany, for the second time, has had its Patriot missile system, or Reed's system, whichever, which is kind of based upon the Patriot missile system, has been hacked twice. Apparently, somebody in Turkey as well, with the German system, tried to hack this thing to launch it. And they think it's the Russians, but they don't know. It could be too. And what they would launch it at, who knows? But the thing is if the Russians, what they're probably doing is probing the thing to see how they're going to attack it, because the Russians have said, if you set these things up on our borders, we're going to attack them. So these things are now being shipped back to the United States to get revamped and set up again. Meanwhile, over in Russia, they're doing drills, and they've made the Germans really, really nervous. I forget what kind of bombs they're using, doing bomb runs or missile drills or whatever it was they were doing. It was more like medium, like tank stuff and stuff like that. And they're writing stuff like this one's for Stalin and what's it called down with something with Berlin or something like that. So basically, like World War II connotations to it. And of course, the German media is just freaking out about this, right? So that's going on as well. So again, there's a lot of that tit for tat going on as well. Next to that, what else is going on? I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on this thing. Again, it's a down the rabbit hole kind of thing. I don't want to say that it's 100% because we don't know. I mean, a lot of it could be propaganda. If these weapons don't exist, and it's an even scarier time we live in because then that means the Russians and the Chinese, apparently I can't remember the name of the senator. He was on Alex Jones at one point. He says the Chinese, says our military technology, they have all of it. They've hacked it all. They've hacked it all. But that's what globalization does. Like it allows everything to be, you're buying Chinese microchips. I'm pretty sure they're going to know how to hack that microchip. You know what I mean? That type of thing. Another thing to keep in mind is the F-35, which I don't know if it's as bad as people say it is. I definitely know it's not as good as people think it might be. It has a lot of problems, and it is turning out to be, it's a make-work project. It's a lemon. The problem is it's been awarded the contract over the F-16C. Now, the designer of the F-16 and A-10, this guy's been bashing the F-35 like crazy. He's saying, wow, the thing can't even take a MiG-21 in a dogfight. Now, I don't know if I believe that. I think that the F-35 is probably going to be more than capable of taking out a MiG-21, but I don't. It, however, did not fare well against the F-16, which I can see that because the F-16 is a pretty incredible airplane. Yes, I've seen them flying up close. If I'm in a dogfight, okay, and my options are MiG-29, F-16, C, MiG, Su-27, I'd probably go with the F-16C. Why? Because I know they'll fly circles around them, and the visibility is awesome. And a 30mm cannon Gatling gun doesn't hurt either, and that high roll rate and that high turn rate. It's a great airplane. If I'm thinking from a economic point of view, for every 1 hour flown, 2.5 to 3 hours, or 3 to 4 hours of routine maintenance. Think about it. What's the F-35 going to be? I know for the F-22, for every 1 hour flown, it's like 30 hours of routine maintenance. An F-18 is about something like 12 hours for every 1 hour flown. So economically, I mean, the F-16 is a really good fighter. It has the look down, shoot down system. Yes, it's a single engine, which is kind of a problem depending on what country you're in. But as a short-range interceptor, I think it'd be perfect. It is a great multi-role airplane. It's well proven. I mean, it has a 39-to-1 kill ratio. It's well proven. Now, mind you, it has went up against older MiG-29s. It hasn't went up against anything modern, but that said, it's modern enough to go up against F-35 or Su-35 or whatever. Now, in a dogfight against an Su-35, I'd probably want the Su-35, but if we're talking guns only dogfight, I don't know. The F-16 is an excellent airplane. Too bad the Americans aren't going to use it. Too bad they're going to go to something that's not as good. And remember, the F-35 isn't a frontline fighter; it's an attack aircraft. So is the F-16, but it is, it could do everything. It can intercept. It's a much better airplane. So the fact that they're going to go with that, what does that tell you? Well, it is what it is. So again, if you're the guys that have to fight in these things, I mean, you're being sold the line that your government cares for you. No, they're going to get you killed. If the thing can't dogfight, that's one thing. But if it can't evade missiles, that's another. And if it can't, do all the above, dogfight, evade missiles, and do ground attack properly. I think it was losing like 3 out of every 4 encounters. So a dogfight can consist of seat of the pants flying, or it can be BVR. Okay, we got a blip on a map here somewhere. Let's see if we can identify it. We identify it, we lock onto it, and we fire at it. So its stealthiness is not really working that well either. And we know that stealth can relatively be easily detected. It's not what it used to be. Stealth aircraft have been shot down, so it is what it is. So next to that, I'm going to leave it at about that because I don't know what else to really add, but it seems like that's the kind of Monday it's been here, is basically, China's pretty much saying, yeah, we just got the God Rod fired on us, and we don't know what this thing is, but it's a kinetic energy weapon. And if they are right, it was a 5 ton, a 5 kiloton blast. That's like Hiroshima blast. So yeah, and they're going to be doing martial law in the area. They're going to be doing a bunch of things. They're definitely cracking down, trying to hush it up. So who knows? And of course, in what you call it, Thailand, there was an attack today. So I don't know what's going on there, but maybe it has something to do with. Again, you just watch it. Maybe it's linked, maybe it's not. Again, Morgan Freeman. Again, his daughter being stabbed by boyfriend giving her an exorcism, ex-boyfriend giving an exorcism. At a time when he's saying, take the, sign the deal, basically trying to work for peace for Iran type of thing. So again, you never know. Who knows what kind of statements are getting out there? I'm not saying that's fact, but it's just something to keep an eye on. So next to that, again, watch the economic information. Almost every time you hear something bizarre in the economic information, something blows up the day after. So it just seems to be, I think desperation is starting to hit in. It is a currency war, trade war, shooting war. This could possibly be the first shots. Who knows? But that said, if that's the shots they're firing, wow, that's pretty scary. So welcome. Will the Empire strike back? Who knows? But anyway, if you like this kind of content, please consider making a donation to the channel. Thank you so much to everybody who has. Check out my WW3 website, Facebook page. It's just WW3 Updates. You can go check that out. On Twitter, it's NotRegMe. And I just posted this video there, the WW3 videos there. Next to that, links down below for the donations, by the way. If you want to advertise on the channel, and stuff like that, maybe palm me a message, and maybe for a small donation we'll work something out. Next to that, rate, subscribe, share, comment, like. Be true to yourself, be true to others. Always do the right thing, and have yourselves a great day. G'day, hi, and welcome. Alright, let's get into this. Okay, this one's kind of a bizarre thing going around. There's a lot of bizarre things going around. Well, there's always bizarre things going around. First off, I just want to address something really quick about gunboats in the Mediterranean, something I've been talking about there with the refugees. It looks like near the Turkish side of, now nobody knows who really did it, but there was 4 guys, masked men on a Greek gunboat or whatever, went and started open firing on some refugees and was sinking the raft, and then they started beating them with sticks. I don't think anybody got killed this time around, but there is a video out there floating around, and it's kind of unnerving, but it kind of goes to what I'm saying. You're having desperate people doing desperate things to desperate people, so it's kind of, kind of strange that way, but that's the way it's working out. Now, another weird anomaly. This one is down the rabbit hole, conspiracy theory. Go check out, just something to keep an eye on. But I just found it odd with the coincidental. Morgan Freeman, the actor. Well, his daughter was stabbed to death in New York City. Now, incidentally, he's just come out in a video saying, talking about the deal with Iran, saying, sign the deal sort of thing. And I think he's more of a Democrat or whatever, but I don't know what his politics really are. Very, very sad for, sorry to hear about his loss or whatever. But it's weird. Well, here's the story. His daughter got stabbed by an ex or something like that during an exorcism. So take that with that's what's floating around on the mainstream media. So, but at the same time, we see him in a video with a bunch of other people saying, don't let the, sign the Iran deal. Don't let it go because, it's we can get into a war if we don't. Now, this all coincides with a lot of things that are going on in the world, and you're seeing not so much, how's the best way to put it? You're seeing despotism to the max. John Kerry is kind of, he's kind of notorious for saying letting the cat out of the bag early. He did this a couple of years ago with Assad, saying, well, if Assad were to give up his weapons, his chemical weapons, we'd have no reason to invade. And lo and behold, Putin jumps on it right away, being the sharp tack that he is, say, yeah, take the deal, And the next day, Assad's like, okay, well, there you go, we've complied to you. So it's like it throws the whole war plan back by about 4 years, right? So, or 2 years, 3 years, whatever it's been. So that obviously was. I'm sure he slapped himself in the forehead for that one. Or maybe, just maybe, and I'm not a John Kerry fan at all. Maybe he's a good guy. Who knows? Maybe he's doing purpose sabotage to actually keep us. I mean, keep in mind, love him or hate him, the man was a war prisoner at one point, and because of that, I'm pretty sure he probably truly understands what hell those guys are going to go through. So if he goes along with it, then he's just complete evil. But if he's actually blurbing and doing like self sabotage, maybe that's a good idea. Either way, it doesn't really matter. He's let the cat out of the bag. So good guy, bad guy. I don't think he's a good guy personally, but you guys argue amongst yourselves. I don't trust any of them. But he has said that if the Iranian deal is not signed, it could mean the end of the petrodollar. But he's also said it makes nuclear war imminent, or not nuclear war, but war with Iran inevitable. So maybe not use nukes, but and it also he referred to Ukraine. He's saying, look, if that falls apart, again, it's that big ass domino effect thing that's going to happen. He's saying European partners will lose confidence in the United States, and if they don't sign the deal, European countries, like I said right from day one, at some point, Europe is going to ask the question, do we go to war for the Ukrainians? The answer, I think, is going to be no. European people, maybe in Eastern Europe, I mean, those people are screwed now anyways, because, that bear's pretty hungry right now, and there's really nobody going to be protecting them. They're on their own. So Lithuania, I think they really screwed themselves by making the bold statements of arming the Ukraine, being the first to arm Ukraine. So Russia's going to get payback on that. I'm not saying Russia's good or Russia's bad. I'm saying the geopolitics are what they are. It's the crazy world we live in. And when Russia knows that there's absolutely no chance that anybody's coming to the rescue of the Ukraine, that's it for the Ukraine. There will be no more Ukraine. It's to me, if you can't see it coming, again, people are going to ask themselves, do they really, really want to die for Eastern Europeans? So Western Europe versus the Eastern Bloc countries, basically, which the regime change in the Ukraine has led to the biggest destabilization of the Ukraine, and it's falling apart now. And the rest of Europe is saying, hey, look, the U.S. is telling us to sanction and cut business, which is hurting Europe as well with Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. is still doing trade and stuff like that with Russia, on most fronts. So, everybody else has to comply to the sanctions, but they don't. So Europeans we want to walk away from this. So if the Iranian deal doesn't get signed, it's going to have that effect where people lose confidence in the United States, and they're just going to start dropping the sanctions on Russia, which actually will be a good thing for Europe because it's business. You know what I mean? Where it's going to be bad is for the Ukraine. It's going to be bad for Lithuania. It's going to be bad for Poland. It's going to be bad for. I mean, people drew their lines, and I understand why. Like, I mean, I get the bad blood between them. I don't think you're going to see a Georgian-style invasion anytime soon. But like I said, the Ukraine, they could bleed this out right away. This is why I think there's been such a mass movement of military and fighting. Something like a couple of hundred tanks, 5,000 personnel or whatever moving to the eastern side of the Ukraine to try to, again, Poroshenko does not have control of the right sector, or let alone the Ukrainian military. He's just there. So they've lost control of the Ukraine. So they know that if before they get thrown under the bus,